Hi guys, it's Grant Abbott speaking from I Love SMSF, and thank you all for attending. I must admit, you probably a bit like me, and when the budget popped out, I must admit I've done so many of these and always get super excited in terms of the budget and what pops up. And look, it's amazing, and this was just another one. I started dragging through and looking through, and you always go to budget paper number 2. That's where the real deal is, and I'm going to spend a bit of time on that today. So I went through and I had a look at some stuff, and probably like many of you, I thought, oh, gee, I'm not sure I'm not sure there's a lot in there for us, particularly when it comes to pre-election. I mean, if we remember some of the old Howard and the Costello budgets with this great big pork on your fork, and there's plenty of stuff going out for everyone, and some pretty serious changes in tax rates and schedules, etc. So we're going to go through a lot today. I don't think there's that much in there overall, but there's a lot of strategies in there that it's taken me probably the last 5 or 6 hours to delve into, pull out and pull apart. We're going to have a lot of fun because there's some really interesting stuff in there, weird. But we're also going to go have a lot of fun around pulling the budget apart. Now, there's one CPD hour for this under FASEA. So this is about professionalism and ethics. It's important as professionals, particularly after the Royal Commission, that we all are aware of potential changes. And of course, we not only know this, but we've also got to take into account the Labor Party changes as well. So I'm going to look at all of this. I'm going to go through the actual budget itself. We're going to cover some issues. I'm going to pull apart the issues. We're going to look at them. I'm going to give you strategies for them, look at some of them, and then we're going to turn our attention to potentially some of the issues around the Labor Party proposals if they get in, and what really needs to be done by 30 June, and also a bit longer term there as well. So it's one for CPD hour, and of course one with the SMSF Association, also the FPA. So there's a lot there. This is being recorded, so it will be up and available. We'll have it in your inbox in the next probably 3 or 4 hours. So please feel free to if you're having problems with the sound or whatever, make sure that you do look at it later on. And it's also very exciting to have me as a podcast in your car at the same time. Anyway, I can't, oh gosh, there you go. That's how disappointed I am with this. Breaking news. Oh, seriously. Anyway, that's a headache. That's what I call a big sigh of exasperation. The Liberal Party and the National Party, which I still think is a coalition, effectively introduced back in the budget in May 2018 that they were going to extend the number of members in SMSF to 6 members. Now, at the time, if you read what I said, look, this is a great opportunity, not so much for necessarily families or people looking at lineage or lineal descendants of bloodline funds, but more importantly for getting family members in, multi-generational. We've got a lot of issues now, particularly if you have a look at my parents' fund. Dad's effectively, he's got dementia. Running those funds later on in life, the last thing you want to do necessarily is particularly wind those funds up. We want to keep them going on down and down the lineage. And if you've been to our roadshow, you would have looked at that. Anyway, they introduced 6 members, so I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to bring multi-generations in. And also my feeling is that originally it was like a shot across the bow by Frydenberg and Morrison to essentially say, look, these extra couple of members, if they are used, not everyone will use it because obviously there's extra administration on board. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later on, which is absolutely crucial. But it would suck the life out of the industry funds, which really we're getting into this stage now that there is a line in the sand. We need to draw that line because essentially the industry funds no way in the world want SMSFs, let alone 6-member funds. Can you imagine those 2 extra member funds or members coming from industry funds? So the excuse, and I just read it on the wire then, the excuse from the Liberal Party is they pulled it out of a bill which also had craft excise beer in, which they wanted to get through before the election. Now, seriously, I reckon 6-member funds are more important than excise on 8 litres of beer, but, maybe I'm not the best judge of that, being a Chardonnay drinker, probably not. Anyway, they pulled it because the Labor Party does not support it. Seriously, as if the party's ever going to support it. Why weren't they working the crossbenchers? You might have seen that we put a bit of a push on this week, and thank you all for those who emailed us or emailed the crossbenchers to get them supporting it. But then who would have ever thought that the Liberal Party and the National Party would have just let it flop to the bottom of the harbour? And look, the cynic in me actually, I believe when it was introduced, it was a good thought bubble at the time. But really, for those of you who actually seen the legislation, it was like, gosh, 1 page long. They could have put that in within a week of introducing or making that announcement there, but left it so late. And my feeling is they never wanted it in the first place. It was going to die and be buried along with the election. So, look, I don't think it's going to be raised again, and it's such a shame because I think it's a golden opportunity. It's something that we've been looking at, or every practitioner has talked about for the last 25 years. Is why is there only 4 members in a fund? Anyway, that's gone, and by the by, I've had a side exasperation. Here's Grant's first rule. Important. You deal with what you deal with. It's very hard to make changes. Again, we've tried to make changes on the sidelines. The only way you're going to make changes is actually being there in a Senate or actually on the House of Reps making changes and doing all the negotiations and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, 6-member rule, let's forget about it, go back to 4 members. And more importantly, I'm finding now anyway, and particularly those who've seen a case study we did at the roadshow, 2 funds per family is not a bad idea. Anyway, this is an interesting budget, very detailed on its purview. Gosh, they've got everything in there. Congrats and thumbs up to Frydenberg. It was his first one. It may well be his last one. But it really lays out a grand vision, which I thought was good because unlike saying, look, in the past, we're going to do $10 billion in infrastructure over the next 10 years, which is very difficult for the average voter to say, okay, well, that means nothing to me now. They have laid out, and if you go through budget paper number 2, not going to take you through that because we've got to get to the juicy stuff. But essentially, with that, they've actually said, look, can you believe it, in Adelaide, they're spending $1.5 billion, and they go through the exact upgrades they're going to do. So they're upgrading a lot of the trams in Adelaide, because anyone who's ever been to Adelaide, if you're driving along suddenly a tram, mind you, there's only like 2 trams or a couple of trains there. There's no underpass or overpass for those, so you have to wait forever, and it just jams everything up. Mind you, there's probably only about, sorry Adelaide guys, there's probably only about 100,000 cars in Adelaide anyway, but still they've earmarked everything into specific locations. So my presumption there is they're going to go out and do advertising in the marginal seats. And obviously they've done Port Balloting saying, oh, by the way, we're the gurus of infrastructure. And mind you, the healthcare spending and the educational spending is all going to be in your electorate. So, I think on that one, they've done extremely well. But again, this 10-year plan, and by the time they get around, and you know how long it takes, infrastructure to get up and running. By the time they plan it, they get the submissions, the EPAs and all that. An idea now, we're going to put $200 million into fixing up this crossing or whatever. It takes another 4 or 5 years. And by the time that's happened, there's more people driving, there's more inner city apartments. So everything's shifted. And particularly when we have a look at healthcare, there's a lot of baby boomers. I mean, the average age of a baby boomer now is probably around about maybe 63, 64. In 10 years' time, it's going to be up around about 73. And so that's going to have a huge impact on the healthcare system. So a classic case I point out is, remember the NBN, this is going to be the world-class system that's actually going to give us absolutely brilliant speeds. Now, I don't know about you, I've got NBN and touch wood. It works well for me, but my mum in Adelaide has it and it's hopeless. Unfortunately, she's got a phone that's attached and streams through the NBN. It just doesn't work all the time. And for someone who lives a life on the phone is just extremely hopeless. But the NBN was the best. Now 10 years out, and really it's almost virtually a dinosaur. So it's very hard. It's nice. It's great to lay out a vision, but at the end, well, wait and see. Anyway. Tax cuts super targeted to the low and middle income earners. So if you're up around about the $60,000, $70,000 mark, you're really going to get quite a bit for the low to middle income tax offset. Is going from $530 up to $1,080, and that can be added to the low income tax offset of $445. I think I got the figures out. So it's quite a bit of a swag in there, but the swag is not, isn't enough at the end of the day to get them over the line. And look, my feeling is I did a poll of all of the. Actually, that's a really good point. Thank you, whoever that anonymous attendee. While tax cuts provide some relief, we better address the fact that wages have been stagnant for such a period of time. Absolutely, and I think that's an issue, that wages haven't really been increasing over a period of time. Things are getting cheaper. I mean, when you have a look at some of the stuff at Big W and Kmart, gosh, obviously a lot's coming from China. But, from our perspective going down the track is, tax cuts are good, but we need to get that economy pumped up. And I tell you what, taking negative gearing and reducing capital gains tax certainly is not going to help that along the way. I'm not sure it's going to actually impact swing voters. I had a big chat with my brother Nigel. For those of you who know, he's at Funsition, which is a crowdsourced funding. They've just got their licence and they're now starting to open up. He believes, the $30,000 write-off for small businesses are in a good position to really take advantage of it. There might be extra income there. But look, I think the Turnbull Abbott Joyce thing over the last maybe 3 or 4 years has really done everyone's head in. And look, I think they're looking for, even though the other side is not that palatable, they're looking for someone else. Again, out of the 500 people who attended our SMSF strategy day, only one person, and that was Milton in Adelaide, put his hand up saying it's a certainty that the Morrison government would get in. So again, if you have a look at the polls, it looks as though it could well be a 40 vote swing, 40 seat swing to the Labor Party. But look, first off, I think Frydenberg did a great job by outlining his grand vision. And look, I hope to see him again as Treasurer. I'm not writing them off. I never write anyone off. And particularly after, remember Hillary Clinton, and for those of you who saw it, Rochelle Naylor, ScoMo's a shy boy, yeah. So go back to the Sharks. Anyway, remember everyone had Hillary Clinton at 98, outrageous odds, and Trump not winning, but Trump came in. So we never know what happens on the day. One thing I do know, there's going to be a lot of protest votes in the Senate. Look, I'm not sure about the SMSF party. They've made us, jump so many hurdles whether we'll be there in time. It's going to be hard pressed, to go for United Australian Party, which, gosh, how much he's spending, apparently $50 million on ads. I'm not sure about Hanson. I think her turn's actually been done. Anyway, let's go to it. Look, today's going to be a bit different. Normally I talk to the slides, but when we go to, and I think it's absolutely crucial for those of us who are licensed, in that if we're going to provide advice in SMSFs, if we're providing financial planning or investment strategy advice, we need to be able to read, understand, and apply the law. That's one of our competency standards, absolutely crucial. So what I'm going to do today is actually, we'll go through the budget papers. They're pretty soft, but we'll pull up some stuff out of them. So we're going to read the proposed changes in the law. We're going to understand how they work, and more importantly, which taxpayers or welfare recipients they apply to. Then I'm going to give you some strategies and apply the proposals to the client's circumstances or the groups of the clients at hand. And please feel free to ask questions along the way. And again, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. And the first one, what is this making the rounds? Now, I love infrastructure. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff on infrastructure in here. The big one, the big move is obviously climate change. I know a good friend of mine, Stuart Nelson, is releasing he's got a solar offering, an Australian solar offering. which is like a bond, and I think that that's the way of the future. But space infrastructure, the government will provide $19.5 billion over 4 years from 2018 to 19 to establish a space infrastructure fund to support projects that will accelerate the growth of Australia's space industry. Cole's investment will be guided by the Australian Civil Space Strategy, which is designed to inform government research and industry collaboration in growing the space sector. Now, I'm being a little cynical, but what are they doing up in space? The only thing I can think of is they're going to get satellites up there that are actually going to be spying on us. Another one that I'll pop up before I move on and get into the juicy stuff is I thought this is good, and again, shout out to my brother Nigel at Funsition in terms of innovation games. The government will provide $3.6 million over 2 years from 2019 to 2020 to trial the innovation games nationally. Innovation games will bring together small and medium businesses and students to solve real-life practical business issues, which I think is good. This probably comes from a lot of the stuff over in the States. They call them hackathons, where people get in and they build code and systems and all that. But look, I'm a great one for that too. There's a lot of real life practical business issues. I certainly know with Lightyear Docs, with our robotic processing automation, we're going down that track. But the more we can develop in there, the better. And again, it's nice to have games, but again, we need to probably have some incentives, which is crucial. So let's get back into the meat and the potatoes. I'll just take you up to the start of the start. Okay, what have I got here? Okay, so the first that I've got is not the Australian-Israel Treaty, although that is quite a juicy one. I've got one here before. Okay, black economy. The government will strengthen the Australian business number system to disrupt black economy behaviour by requiring ABN holders from the 1st of July 2021 with an income tax return obligation to lodge your income tax return, and for the 1st of July 2020 to confirm the accuracy of their details on the ABN register annually. So that means a little bit more work for the accountants in the audience, so thumbs up for there. That obviously, though, also has an impact on SMSFs, which obviously have an Australian business number. So we're going to put a lot more pressure on lodging returns, and you'll see a little bit later on when we get to pension-only funds that we do need, in some instances, obviously we don't necessarily need to lodge returns for them if there's no income coming through, unless obviously if the refundable franking credits get binned, that we do need to go and apply for an exemption to lodge returns. So ABN holders, absolutely crucial, so make sure we watch out for that one. Let's go down a little bit further. Scott Grogan, talking of talkathons, whatever happened to the Rudd Swan 2020 summit and the outcomes? Oh my God, I mean, seriously, they just go down. Look, I'm getting very cynical as I get older about all politicians. There was a really good one Chris sent me. I don't know if you've seen it, Christopher Pine singing Spirit in the Sky while he's ironing his shirt. And I'm thinking, he's leaving the government at age 55 or 56 with a $200,000 plus pension income stream for the rest of his life, that if that was taken into consideration under the T-bar that we've all go to, is probably around about $4 or $5 million. And I'm just thinking, no wonder he's singing Spirit in the Sky and he's laughing virtually all the way to the bank. And again, just another one who's copped out of the Morrison government, left the Shire to itself. Instant asset write-off, not a bad thing here. So we had the original 20, and you can see there it jumped up to 20. It was up to 25,000 from January in 2018. Now it's going up to 30,000. But they've also taken it up quite apart from a small business. We've also got there, you can see there, medium-sized businesses with aggregated annual turnover of 10 million or more, but less than $50 million. So it's not a bad idea because you're going to get a deduction all that. Now, anyway, I said I'll put a spin on. I'm not saying that you'd want to do this, but I have put it in place before for other people, in that where we go is that for an SMSF could purchase an asset, let's say it's a blah asset, maybe worth $25,000. And then it leases that out to a third party. Obviously, it can't be leased out back to a related party because that would breach the in-house assets test. Well, it depends, of course. I mean, if someone's got $3 million inside well, here you go. Here's one. Someone's got $3 million in a fund. They purchase a Holden motor vehicle. Well, is there any Holden motor vehicles anymore? I'm not sure. I saw the Commodore. I drove it last year. Oh, my God, what a disgrace. But anyway, we get a car that's less than $30,000, and then we lease it out back to our business, or we lease it back to our son's business or our daughter's business, or a son or a daughter. Then effectively, maybe not directly relatives because it might be a Section 65 issue. But if we're under the 5% rule, then effectively we can go down that track. Or alternatively, the superannuation fund could have a few of these motor vehicles and lease them out to independent, unrelated parties. And again, that provides a pretty good income stream. The underlying might be up around about 6, 7, 8%, the underlying return on those vehicles. Query whether there's a business. Again, there's not an issue. Go on, just do Google search about running a business through a self-managed super fund. The Commissioner's giving you all the rules, checklists, all of that sort of stuff. So again, it's probably not a bad idea. For $30,000, what could we use that for? Well, that'll be used for obviously leasing income that we have there. Ideally, you'll see a bit later on, I'd love to purchase that asset, put it over into the pension side of the fund where we can now segregate pension assets, and then obviously just take the deduction to wipe out contributions tax. Again, we see little things like this, these little nuggets, and we say, okay, well, how can that be used? Now, it's not for everyone, but, there's some clients out there that do need leases, find it hard to get leases, and there might be clients on the other side of SMSFs who may be able to utilise this and also provide some great tax relief at the same time. Again, it's just an idea, and that's what we need. We're ideas people. That is what we have to effectively live on. We don't make widgets. We don't do anything else. We talk to clients and we take up strategies. And again, strategies are the best things for us. Okay, lower taxes for hard-working Australians. And again, the thank you for the comment before is that wages really haven't gone up that much in the last 10 years. So, hard-working Australians are probably finding it more difficult time and time again. Isn't it amazing, isn't it, that healthcare or private healthcare okay, so Kenyo, thank you very much. So he's got, don't think you can claim the 30K if the asset is predominantly used for leasing income. Thank you very much for that. Let me check on that one. Again, that was just one of my thought bubbles, and I should have gone to you straight away, Kenyo, for that one. But if it's just leasing, obviously we've got a bit of an issue there. So thank you very much for that one. I'll come back to you guys on that one. Lower taxes for hardworking Australians, building on the personal income tax. Okay, so let's just go through this. It's not a huge one. If we go down to the immediate relief, so they've actually pulled it in forward for us. So we've got the government will provide a further reduction in tax provided through the non-refundable low and middle income tax offset. Under the changes, the reduction in tax provided by Limoto will increase from a maximum amount of $530 to $1,080 per annum. The base amount will increase from $200 to $255 per annum for the 2018-2019 income year. So obviously they're making sure that they can swing it straight away in this current income year. So with that one, if we have a look at it, there's not a bad little advantage there. And again, so that's the low to middle income tax earners. And of course, we've still got the low income tax offset there as well. Now, by putting it this year, obviously, when people lodge their returns, they'll get it back. The idea is they've got to lodge returns in July or August and get it back really quickly. So they're spending, if we have a look at how much they're spending on it, you can see up around there. By 2023, it's going to cost $4.5 billion, which is quite a sizable amount. So here's my spin on it. And again, I want to make sure we get it right. During the strategy day, what I did is I had a look at, and just play along with me for this one, and this is going to apply for both if the Liberal government gets in, and also obviously the Labor Party gets in. And particularly if we have a look at family trusts that are going to have, for adults, flat rate of tax of 30% on distributions, which is going to be an absolute disaster. So, but anyway, that's a new fight that's coming down the track. One of the elements there is that we can pull out of a family trust, a family company, or anyone for employment that matter. We can make tax deductible contributions. So, for example, if I'm running a business and my parents are bona fide, genuinely running or working in that business, then provided I've got an employment agreement, again a valid bona fide employment agreement, I can make a full salary sacrifice on their behalf. So just hear me out on this one. I'm going to make sure I use the words to paint a picture there. So we've got a family trust, that's currently earning quite a bit of taxable income. If we go down the track, and if the Labor Party has its way, it's a 30% flatter rate of tax. Otherwise, obviously, they're just typical distributions. We pay tax at our marginal rate. And this is a big if we've got parents who are retired at over age 60. So one of the elements there is, and in fact, I just worked recently with a client, Karen Vickers, who had a client who was 62 or 63, wanted to take money out of super, but they hadn't retired. They were still working. I said, look, if you want to keep on working, and they did want to keep on working for a long time, they didn't have enough money in super. I said, all you have to do is just give up one form of gainful employment. And then at that point in time, all the money that's sitting inside your super fund at that time becomes unpreserved or unrestricted non-preserved. So you can use it as either a pension or as a lump sum at that time. So that's crucial. So one of the first keys is you must know CIS regulation 6.017, which gives the definition of retirement, particularly for over age 60, because that's something that we need to make sure for our clients that once they're 60, they become retired. Because once they become retired, then they can start to take out pension income, subject, of course, to their T-bar, which I'm presuming if you're first starting at age 60, you're going to be okay. So anyway, play with me. So once they're over age 60, they can generally be employed. There's a case called Ryan's case, Ryan versus FCT, which said salary sacrifice, the amount of salary sacrificed isn't reflective of the amount of work put in by our parents into that business. So as long as you do have some bona fide employment, and particularly this is great for farms, where parents help out in the business, etc., particularly small business area, then at that stage, we're able to put in contributions. So ordinarily we'd put in, let's say if we put in $25,000 contribution, that would go into a SMSF, let's say that's for mum, and $25,000 for dad. So that's AOK, goes in there. That's taken out $50,000 of money from the family trust, the family company or whatever. So that's in a good position. It goes into the superannuation fund. And then obviously they're over age 60, so it's going to build in there. But if they've already got existing super or they terminate employment post receipt of that amount of money, then effectively they can draw it down. If they're over age 60, it's tax-free. So the only tax in that whole pool, if you get me right, is the contributions tax. And again, if we're investing right, we've got our clients, and I know many of the planners out there and certainly the accountants out there as well, your clients have got a lot of franking credits. And of course, obviously, that's one of the things that is going to be seriously on the chopping board if we see a change in government. I don't think, I just don't think anything's going to happen on that one. So we need to utilise our franking credits if possible. So if we go in and we can utilise our franking credits to reduce our contributions tax to zero, then we're in a good position, because it means $25,000 per mum, per dad has gone into the superannuation fund, and effectively that money's there, ready and waiting to be taken out later on, and effectively it's tax-free. mind you, the money has come from the business to pay for mum and dad. And if there's only one child running that business, then, if something happens to mum and dad, there needs to be a good binding death benefit directions or nominations to make sure it flows there. And you can write it specifically, this has got to go to this, or this amount's got to go to this, much the same as you'd write a will outside. Now, that's the first step. So everyone's with me on that one. Now, here's where I'm going to play a lot with your minds over the next 10, 15 minutes, because I've made about 2 or 3 different changes here, which works absolutely perfect for this strategy. What we're going to do is we're going to go deliberately into excess concessional. So I'm going to jump us up by paying another $30,000. So in fact, I'll make it 35. I'm feeling very generous. So they go up to $60,000. Everyone with me there? So family trust, same deal, blah, 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 goes into the superannuation fund. And mind you, a lot of this stuff can be done pre-election. Before the Labor Party gets in, or hopefully by that stage. Well, look, if they get in, it's going to be late May. By the time they get everything, it's 30 June's over and done with. So remember, in June, we can actually put the money in and delay. We can delay any, concessional contributions and all that to the following year. What we do though is we can put that in. Remember, I've got $25,000 in there. And I'm putting an extra 35 to make it 60. So Grant's just writing on the pad. Feel free to do so if you want. I've got one of my beautiful light year pads. So that $35,000 is excess concessional. It's also non-concessional contribution. So you just got to park that, put it away, make sure you haven't blown your NCCs at that stage. So it's excess. And this is what happens. So if we put it in now, let's say we put it in June, that extra 35. So again, that means with a 25, 35, 60 contribution going in, tax deductible goes in, and effectively we need to shelter with contributions tax that's $60,000. So if I have a look at that, that's $9,000 of effective contributions tax in there. Of course, if we've got a deduction against 60 would be fine, but if we've got $9,000 of franking credits, then it means on that $60,000 going into my super fund, it's a zero play, and I love zero plays. Now, what will happen though is that 35 goes in. Then for the accountants in the room, you're going to note in your income tax return for 30 June 2019, which will be like probably around about March 2020, that the super fund has received an excess contribution of $35,000. At the same time, and here's the deal, this is where it all plays out, is mum and dad will lodge their returns. Well, the first thing is it's pretty tough, because if mum and dad are only just living on their super income, there's really no need for them to lodge returns because they do not have their assessable income. This is one stuffer, because if we have a look at it, the way the system works is if you go in excess concessional, then the super fund lodges the return, the individual lodges its tax return, they're married together, and then the commissioner comes back and amends the assessment. And the commissioner will come back and add back to mum's and add back to dad's 35K. That makes sense, because that's excess concessional. So then what will happen is commissioner will come back and goes in. He doesn't do anything, but his computer does the little stuff and adds back the 35K and works out what the tax is on the 35K. Now the 35K, I'm not going to go in. I could show you up on the screen what it would be, but effectively the important thing about it is on the $35,000 of excess, there's a 15% tax offset. So when I sit down and use my trusty, I should have done this before, on my trusty calculator, so I've got $35,000 multiplied by 0.15, I've got $5,250 of tax offset. Now, mind you, I'm not going to have time to go into it, but I went to the tax office website, and even with the low income tax offsets, we can earn up to $20,000 per annum and not pay tax. So $35,000, remember this is add back, there's no way in the world a $5,250 offset is going to require us to pay tax. So on that $60,000 contribution, barring any contributions tax, remember we're using franking credits, blah, 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 to get rid of that, we're not going to have to pay tax on that. So there's the amended assessment, there'll be no tax payable. And here's the deal, there is a magic number. there is a magic number because I've got 35. I could go up to 40. I could go up to 45 excess. I might, listen, I might, with the low income tax offset, the low to middle income tax earner offset or tax offset, my figuring is that I'm probably now, based on this, I think I can make, and I'm going to have to do the numbers on this, that I could, at 30 June 2019, make a contribution, a deductible contribution from a family trust to mum and dad inside the super fund, provided I've got a bona fide employment agreement I can show them, of around about $74,500, which is almost $50,000 of assessable income into the superannuation fund, and effectively we won't have to pay any tax on that, which to me is absolutely phenomenal. So I think, look, this is an awesome position. I am doing a case study on this, doing a rework. I'm going to do rework with pre and post, but we've now got to start to play this together and we can start to see it really fits in well. Of course, the key to it is the ability to get rid of contributions tax, the 15% tax offset, and of course there's the excess concessional contributions charge because we've got an excess, but that's a charge based on tax payable. And if you've got no tax payable, then there's no ECC. So to me, it seems to be in a pretty good position. And I must admit, some people say, well, what about tax avoidance? Well, there's not really tax avoidance because you're still paying the tax. There just happens to be an offset. And effectively, if you go through the EM, which was introduced in 2013, the whole purpose of it was to add back the amended assessment. Remember, if they wanted to keep it like it was before, there would have just been, I wouldn't be doing this because on the $35,000, I would have had to pay 32% tax. So again, looking at a different way, at a different feeling, and again, we could have our children, particularly the 18-year-old children, getting trust distributions. And those trust distributions, they can then make a contribution into superannuation. And again, that deductible contribution is allowed. There's none of that employment rule at the moment, and they can get a tax deductible contribution, up again, the same sort of thing. Now, mind you, of course, putting it for the kids, they're not going to be able to take for a long time. The benefit here is the parents, particularly if you're looking at clients between 35 to 55 who can't access their super, or 50, using their parents, the parents can not only access the super, it comes out tax-free, and also it's a good position to look after the family. So that's my little spin on it. I thought it would have been, I thought it was a great little spin. For that one, we can go down and actually have a look at, I'll just go down to page 185. So sorry about jumping around. I could easily spend 3 hours on this, but you guys haven't got 3 hours, but I know you'd love to spend 3 hours with me. But, you know, the more I have a look at this, the more strategies I find out. You know, this is not a boring, boring thing by any stretch of the imagination. If I just go down and have a look here, a couple of things. I'll come back to this one, super release. Okay, let me just go through a couple of things. I won't go into any great detail. I'm going to come back to the CPI. But we saw yesterday, and for those who would have seen my bit of a shout out, that effectively the work test for 65 or over 65, so 66 and 67-year-olds, is to effectively be binned as well. So you still make contributions up to age 75. So between ages 68 to 75, there'll need to be that 40 hours and 30 days of work test, which is currently the case. Remember, originally there was supposed to be no work test up to age 75. So Morrison, the shy boy, broke that one back in. So again, this is another element there for us, particularly the strategy I just gave you, is it's another area where we can actually start to bring the 66 and the 67-year-olds. But again, remember, one of the key features there anyway is if it's coming out as genuine employment income, or sorry, salary and wages, but salary sacrifice, we're going to have to want that work there anyway. So it's not a huge issue. One of the things here is I'm going to just go through, read it, and then I'm going to spin your heads around a little bit on this one. So the government's going to provide $19.3 million over 3 years from 2021, including 12.6 in capital funding to the ATO to send electronic requests to super funds for the release of money required under a number of superannuation arrangements. This change will take effect from 31st of March 2021, which seems, oh God, that's 2 years away. Will be implemented by expanding the electronic super stream rollover standard used for the transfer of information and money between employers, super funds and the ATO. The start date of the SMSF rollovers and super stream will be delayed until 31st of March 2021 to coincide with the expansion of the super stream rollover standard, which is a bit sad because I was hoping that it would be in straight off. So if we have a look with that one, it's interesting. So let me play it out to you. So I remember I did mum and I did dad. So we're going to go back. Remember, I'm looking at my little Light Docs pad, and we made a $60,000 contribution. Remember, we put it in on behalf of mum and dad and blah, 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 blah. They took it out, so they're able because they'd already met the condition of release. Now, we can make that contribution on behalf of, let's say, a 40-year-old. So we've got mum and dad's son. So the son or the daughter, in fact, we'll use the daughter, and we'll call her Robin. So Robin works in the business. It's in a family trust. So this year, and let me play it with you. This year, we've got plenty of taxable income coming through the fund, through the trust, and Robin is going to make a $60,000 contribution. Well, not Robin, the family trust is. Is everyone with me again? So it's the same as before. So again, Robin, $25,000. Hopefully, Robin's parents, mum, the mum and dad are already in the fund, got heaps of franking credits. So again, on that $60,000, the $9,000 franking credits are used and, basically wipe out that contributions amount. Now, again, what will happen is with Robin, there's the $35,000 of monies which will be added back to her assessable income. So no doubt she's got ordinary employment income. This is a salary sacrifice on top of that. Make sure you've got an employment agreement, and then obviously got distributions as well. So that's added back. And remember, we added back, we've got a 15% tax offset. So we work out our marginal rates, so on and so forth. So it all plays out, again, the same way. Now, here's the deal. You say, well, why would I do it for Robin? She's only like 40 years of age. Sounds great. It's good, actually, to get the money into super and boost it there. Well, here's the deal. If you have an excess contribution, so remember we went through the same process, definitely with Robin. So Robin will lodge her tax return, her personal tax return, probably in February, March, depending on where she sits on your lodgement list. The tax office will receive the super funds return, and then we'll probably pop out and say, look, Robin, here's your assessment. So your assessment comes out, let's say, in May 2020 and says, look, you've taken $35,000 of excess contributions. There's an excess concessional charge on it because you've already got all this existing. You've got a 15% offset. So you now owe us, let's say, $8,000 or $5,000. Again, I'm just throwing these figures. I'm spitballing here, so just play with me. Now, here's the deal, is under the rules, and particularly under this new superannuation standard, irrespective of age, the commissioner comes back and let's say says, you've made a $35,000 excess contribution, and again we've got to watch out for NCCs and all that. So I've made the $35,000. There's tax payable on it. Now, under this release authority, this is what I like, is that with a super stream, we can, under the current laws, we can go to the commissioner and ask for a repayment of 85%, I'm just doing this thing, of 85%, sorry, 35, I'm doing my phone, times 0.85. I can go to the Commissioner, and on the $35,000 of excess contribution, I can go to the Commissioner and ask for him for a release authority of $29,750, which could, of course, be used to pay off my tax liability, but the rest of the money I can pull out. So I can actually use, believe it or not, where we make an excess contribution, effectively it's in a no man's land. Virtually it's a park and ride position. So we put it in there until the assessment, and then I think we've got 60 days after that to ask the Commissioner to release it. Effectively, we've got a situation that's almost like it's not preserved, it's sort of preserved, but it's not preserved until you don't make or you don't meet that release. So even at age 40, we can still pull that money out. We've got it in, we've got our tax relief, particularly if we've got a lot of franking credits in there, we can go down that track and utilise that strategy. So to me, that's a pretty exciting one for us, and something that, you know, I think once the super stream comes out, it's going to be a lot easier to go to the tax office and say simply, what I'd like you to do is put that, release that money from the super fund, and the Commissioner would then obviously make a request on the super fund, pull that money out, and then it go directly to you. As opposed to NCCs, if we go above the NCCs and we take the money out, it comes out from the trustee directly to the member. So we've gone through the asset write-off. Let's just go back to the ECPI changes, which I think are pretty exciting. So this is back at page 23. Okay, so there we go. So page 23. Hopefully I had it. It says page 23. Must have got too excited this morning. Page 23. Hopefully it's not page 23 on it. That's the ABN we had a look at. Oh, I think we're coming up here. Sorry, these are all the superannuation changes. Okay, diplomatic. Don't you like that? Anyway. Okay, Australia signing the Israel tax treaty. We talked about personal income tax. Now we move on to the super. So it's page 23 here. So sorry about this. Min sheds, we get a thing on min sheds. Okay, so protecting your super package. Effectively there, we're going to, I don't know what happened there. So, sorry, sham consulting. Okay, so protecting your superannuation package, when we have a look at protecting the super package, that effectively is the life insurance is going to make a change. I don't know what I've got there. So the government will delay the start date for insuring insurance. That's not really what I want to get to. Okay, improving flexibility for older Australians. We talked about that at age 65 and 66. Currently, people aged 65 to 74 can only make voluntary super. I think most of us know that. That's like bread and butter. That's superannuation 101, tax relief emerging. Superannuation, this is an interesting one, and we'll sort of look at that before I go into the thing. I'm going to look at this quickly. The government will reduce costs and simplify reporting for superannuation funds by streamlining some administrative requirements for the calculation of exempt pension income. The government would allow superannuation fund trustees with interest in both accumulation and retirement phases during an income year to choose their preferred method of calculating ECPI. Now, that seems to me be saying that when we have a look at it, that particularly with some funds where we've got over 1.6 million or someone in some fund, that we can't use segregated assets. It looks to me as though we are going to have the ability to use segregated pension assets, which is crucial. For those of you who've been following me, I'm a great believer, particularly when we've got different generations in the fund, of segregating anyway from a CIS perspective, and that can have quite a significant effect on the ECPI in terms of the proportionate method anyway, but certainly it does have quite an impact with the T-bar, because if we obviously put our high growth assets over into a segregated pension, and when I mean segregated pension with CIS, not necessarily tax, then any increase on that goes on the T-bar side, on the pension side, as opposed to accumulation side. So I'm a big one on segregation. Haven't got time to go into it yet, but look, that's there. And of course, if you've got all pension phase, then you're not going to need an actuarial certificate, which seems to me to be quite sensible. And we've got 1st of July 2020 estimated to have no revenue impact. I just want to go through the next one for us. We've got the last 10 minutes, and again, I've been yabbering on, so sorry about that. There's some of the changes. I've looked at a couple of strategies there for you. Big issues pre-election. So use the concessional, non-concessional caps to their fullest and cross all members. So if we've got an election late May, then it looks as though, come early June, the Labor Party won't be in. So they'll still be, going through the processes. So in June is a great time to make contributions. So get yourself up, put your hands up, get those excess concessional. Remember, you've got non-concessional $100,000. So effectively, if you get in June of this year, you can put 100 for the current year, and provided you've got the caps, you can then put into a suspense account rather than contributions reserve, a suspense account, another 300,000, which carries it forward to the 2019-2020 year. So that's important. It doesn't have to be cash. It can be a promissory note, a short-term promissory note, which we'll be putting up on Light Year Docs very shortly. And obviously can include property, parts of property of provided as business real property, or obviously listed shares. Deductible contributions for employees. The Labor Party have come out and said that effectively they're going to disappear. Remember, under the current rules, I could be supported by my employer and still make a contribution of any amount. Remember, I went through and I said 35 with mum and dad. Well, it could be 350 if I wanted. And obviously, I'm going to bring NCCs and all that into play. But effectively, there's a lot of stuff we really need to do and be proactive, not only for ourselves but also for our clients coming up to 30 June. NCCs, as I said, use your 3-year rule plus the other year rule. Get on board from the 1st of June if that's possible. For those who've got super less than 500K, then don't forget the 5-year concessional contribution rule where you can average it out. So that's one of the first things that the Labor Party have said that they're going to get rid of. So again, make sure you put that into play. These are all the things that we've got to actually look at now. And assuming, well, we should be looking at this now anyway, just for our clients. But really what will happen is we've got to ramp it up a lot further if we end up with a Labor opposition getting into Parliament. Super strategy, if they've got a share portfolio, switch it in now. I've just shown you can get deductible contributions of up to $1 million or $2 million if you want to get rid of the capital gains tax. Obviously, if it's excess, we're going to have to worry about the tax there. If it's NCC, you're going to have to pull the share portfolio or the money outside. So it's not a bad switcheroo if you wanted to do that. One of the things, though, is just be mindful. It's nice to put it in, get rid of the capital gains tax, particularly if a client wants it. Just got to be careful that if there's not enough utilisation of the franking credits inside that fund, then it's probably not worthwhile putting inside the fund. So with franking credits, we want to have them outside and also inside the fund, so making full use of them. And of course, depending again on whether they get in, would it be great to have obviously a ban for discretionary trust where we can stream our franking credits to the right people. So these days, nothing is all about SMSF. It's about companies. It's about SMSFs. It's also about obviously trust as well. And you've heard me before about making sure that there's a leading member that controls the whole process. You can send it down to lineage or bloodline, or can send anywhere. So just be careful, franking credits are used and applied. One thing that I've built, which is quite useful, is a related party LRBA, which can be used obviously over property, but can also be used over a range of shares. If there's a collection of shares, it's around about 8 or 9 documents together, deals with investment strategy, so on and so forth. But that'll be available up on Light Year Docs. It's only, I think, $450 for change of deed, change of constitution, investment strategy, holding trust, related party loan, meeting with PCG, which also needs obviously a mortgage deed or a charge deed as well. So that's a useful strategy again if you've got clients there. you're going to transfer the shares in, you might as well put a bit of leverage on, because once the Labor Party gets in, don't expect to be able to do LRBAs anymore. Now, next month is a big one. Obviously, election cannot be forestalled. I'm sure my mate ScoMo down for the Shire would love to get another year or two, but we're right at the very far end of when election has to be called. If we look at some of the polling, it's not a good look, and I can see why our mate Chris Pine is talking about spirit in the sky, so happy getting out there. But potentially there could be they could end up with a 45 seat majority. Obviously the Senate is probably going to be ruled by the crossbenchers, so at least we can help on that one. But essentially, if we find that there's a 40 to 45 seat majority, that's going to take at least 2 to 3 terms, barring any stuff up. And I think with the changes that the Labor Party put into their, making sure their leader gets dumped, which obviously the Liberal Party and the National Party should have done in the first place, we could be in for 6 or 9 years. But again, we're playing the game. And so just the same way, 6 members would have been nice. It's not going to be in. So let's go back and maybe use 2 funds and change. Change always brings opportunities, particularly when we start to look at the family trust issues, particularly when we start to also have a look at capital gains being reduced from 50% down to 25%. That's a big one. Really, I don't even think that keeps up with inflation for a lot of these long-term ones. Now, mind you, it won't be retrospective, but that's what they said about the T-bar, which was highly retrospective. But again, that's what we're there for. It's going to be so much more complex. I'm sitting on a 2,800-page 2019 Australian superannuation legislation at the moment, so I expect that to grow by another 500 pages, particularly when we have a look at the industry funds working alongside the unions, working alongside the Labor Party to make our life a lot harder. So not only do the SMSF party and also the associations, we need to fight every step of the way. Look, I was just really upset that we didn't get up on the 6 members. There wasn't enough fight there, but certainly we're going down that track. Light year docs on its way. We're just doing the finishing touches. Obviously, with a robotic processing automation is quite a significant impact. If you'd like to have a demo of our site, just contact Daniel at ilovesmsf.com. So it's Daniel at ilovesmsf.com, and see how you can do those related party LRBAs. Oh, and just by the way, none of our documents, except the RPAs, obviously we got 8 or 9 documents together, is only $450, but none of our documents are any more than $99. And for many of you who are on our system, you'll get a $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 credit each and every month. So you're going to get really high quality documents that either be written by myself or some of the best people in Australia. You're going to get it at an extremely affordable price, which means more money in your pocket, which is absolutely crucial. The FASEA CPD and legislative changes, there's exam prep going on, so watch out for that email coming up a little bit later on. Watch out, there's, as I said, there's, particularly if the Labor Party gets in, all that climate change and in particular the new Australian solar offering is good. Watch out for Nigel and all the crowdsourced funding are great. And also make sure you, in our CPD series, we've got the most affordable, I don't like to say cheap because cheap sounds nasty, the most affordable CPD anywhere in Australia. We'll continue to do that. So thank you very much for your time. It's 12:29. Any questions, just send us support@ilovesmsf.com. If you'd like to have a look at booking a demo with Daniel in terms of having a look at the light year docs and start saving, and also having a look at our wide-ranging strategies and our RPAs and also a lot of our leading member stuff, which is really awesome for some of your family clients, please do so, Daniel at ilovesmsf.com. Anyway, budget, as you can see, there's stuff. There wasn't that much stuff in there, but always for me, there's a great thing. Just one thing, Jeff Wallace, any idea if FASEA will provide an approval process for current advisors? Reading the guidelines gives no certainty. Would be nice to have FASEA say you're okay we have to do this and that. We're currently going through that process along with Bronnie Speed at Accountants IQ. I quite agree with you, Jeff. We need to have some hard and fast rules. One of the important ones for us is to ensure that we do the exam first and foremost. The first ones, I understand, are coming in June, so watch out for our exam prep coming up in May and June. And please feel free to obviously contact us at any point in time. Thank you again for all your time. And again, mate, don't miss out on that excess contribution. There's no such thing as a contribution crap. It's only a threshold. It's Grant Abbott, signing off.